and today we will begin our adventure right here at the Westview Memorial Park, just outside of Wadesboro, North Carolina. Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome to the channel, Hitchhiking Yeti here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really looking forward to this vlog. Done a little research about this town we're about to go to, and there is some crazy numbers to go over you with, because one of the things, it's not the income, it's not the demographics of the town, but it is indeed the crime of this town will rival some of the United States' most highest crime rate cities. I'm talking places like Oakland, Detroit, Memphis, Tennessee. This small North Carolina town has a crime rate on par with those big cities. We're going to get into it today. Should be fun, but we're going to start off first right here at this cemetery, because there is a somewhat of a famous person that grew up in Wadesboro that was actually laid to rest here. I'm going to introduce you to him right here, just in case you don't know him. Let's go ahead and get started. So right over there is the entrance where you come into the cemetery. And now I'm looking for the grave of Sylvester Ritter. Most of you may know him as the Junkyard Dog. He is actually buried somewhere right over here in this area. And I remember watching the Junkyard Dog as a kid in WWF. And right there is a Ritter grave. That's not the right one. There's an Ingram. Here is another Ritter. So we might be getting close. Oh, right there it is. Here is the grave of Sylvester Ritter, better known as the Junkyard Dog. How cool is that? I never knew that the Junkyard Dog was from Wadesboro, North Carolina. I didn't even know much about his history other than what I've seen on TV back in the day. But he was born December 13th, 1952, and died June 1st, 1998. And if I remember correctly, I think he died in a car crash, like down further south somewhere, like in Mississippi or somewhere along those lines. But he is indeed from Wadesboro, North Carolina. And Ritter grew up in Anson County before moving to Greensboro, North Carolina, where he attended high school. He later played college football as an offensive lineman in Fayetteville State University, earning All-American honors. And after college, Ritter had a brief stint attempting to play in the NFL and the CFL, but injuries and roster cuts he had to go and pursue a different path, which in the mid-1970s, that path was wrestling. So back in 1980, Mr. Ritter started wrestling for Mid-South Wrestling. I think that was Bill Watts, I believe, was the promoter, and I think he was the one that actually gave, Ritter his Junkyard Dog persona, or that name, and he was promoted as Junkyard Dog. He was a tough, streetwise character who entered the ring to Another One Bites the Dust. Okay, so I think that's going to pretty much do it for the cemetery and the grave of the Junkyard Dog. If you ever come here, when you pull into the cemetery, the best way to do it is just go far left, right up against this tree line right here, and you will find the Junkyard Dog or Sylvester Ritter's grave site right over there in that area. All that being said, let's go ahead and make our way into town. Go check out Wadesboro. Okay, and welcome to Wadesboro. I'm right here across from the Oasis Kitchen and Cafe, Southern Cooking. I gotta say, it smells amazing. But this next stop right here, before we really get into the downtown area, you guys who are a fan of horror movies, you might have heard of a movie called Evil Dead 2. And I'm about to show you the filming location for that movie. And it is this old defunct building right here. It looks like an old gym. I kind of peeked inside when I got here. But this right here was the filming location for that very old school horror movie, Evil Dead 2. And it looks pretty bad in here. Look at the old lights up there from the gym back in the days. And you know something else that's kind of creepy? Get the basketball goal. But sure enough, this right here was where Evil Dead 2, the filming, took place. Right here inside this old defunct gym. Okay, let's continue on. We're going to drive through some of the neighborhoods as we make our way into the town and check out some of the home fronts and kind of see how things look here in this area. Yeah, at the moment we're just kind of cruising through the community here. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Old abandoned car out there in their yard. Check out this little cinder block house right here. Don't look like anyone has lived there in quite some time. Matter of fact, still has the Christmas lights up on the front porch. And here's another little home, probably nothing more than a 2-bedroom. That was a cute little place at one time. There's another home that's abandoned. It's got posted on it. And look at this one. It is really falling apart. Wow. This is really interesting here because look at all these little homes down through here. Same size, same shape. And then right across the road, you have this abandoned home. A lot of things here are just decrepit in this area. Some nice looking brick home right there. It's not so bad. Oh my God, it scared me to death. I seen these lions out here at the entrance to their driveway. I didn't know what that was off into the distance because the sun kind of glared. Oh my goodness. Now these homes in this area right here, they feel a little bit different. You know, they're not abandoned. There actually has a tire swing. I ain't seen a tire swing in quite some time. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Completely abandoned. Tin roof. And then this home right here across the street from it is also abandoned. Looking pretty rough. Okay, welcome to Uptown Wadesboro, North Carolina. I'm standing here in front of the Anson County Courthouse, which dates back, as you can see up there at the very top, 1912. And just to give you a little bit of history, on April 2nd, 1868, a major fire swept through Wadesboro, destroying the courthouse and many other buildings. This courthouse today that we see was built in 1912. So this here is not the original courthouse, but nonetheless, it is awesome. This courthouse is so beautiful, really awesome looking. And right across the street from the courthouse, I noticed this American flagpole positioned on top of this brick building. It says Belk's at the top of it. And Belk's is a department store here in the Carolinas that many people go and shop for clothes and things like that. But this building was not always a Belk's. Back in 1902, when this building was originally built, it was actually Allen Hardware Company. A Belk didn't arrive until March 27th of 1925. And today it is not a Belk anymore. It is actually just a building that has been repurposed, and it's a part of the historic district. So who knows what's going to happen to this building moving forward in the future, but nonetheless, I wanted to definitely call it out. I think it's still an awesome looking building, and it still says Belk's up there at the very top of it. My mom would be proud. She's bought quite a few outfits from Belk's over the years. And right here on the side of this old Belk building, I wanted to show you this wall mural right here. It says the name Blind Boy Fuller on it. Now, this gentleman's real name was Fulton Allen, and he was born in Wadesboro, as you can read right down there, in 1907. It's a fairly new wall mural. It was actually painted by S. Norkin of 2022. But this guy right here was a player of the blues, and he is actually from Wadesboro. Kind of a sad story, though. Fulton Allen was one of 10 children born to Calvin Allen and Mary Jane Walker in Wadesboro, he began losing his eyesight in his mid-teens, and a 1937 eye exam attributed to his vision loss. That is so sad. But he was quite the guitar player here in these parts. So as I walk around this town, I'm finding all kinds of little nuggets hidden within. This spot right here, on May 28th of 1900 at 1:54 p.m., there was a total solar eclipse here in Wadesboro. And people from all over, hundreds of astronomers, newspapers, reporters from around the world descended upon this little town because this was the perfect place to view and report on the total solar eclipse. I did not know that, but now I know, and they even have a placard right here to tell you about it. Now I summarized it and made it a little bit smaller, but all in all, that's what this plaque is for, is telling you there was a total solar eclipse here, and people from all over came to Wadesboro back in 1900 to go check it out. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about early history of the town of Wadesboro. So Wadesboro was founded in 1783. It was originally called Newtown when established by Captain Patrick Bogan, who purchased about 70 acres for the county seat. In 1787, the North Carolina General Assembly renamed Wadesboro in honor of Colonel Thomas Wade, a Revolutionary War figure and local legislator. And Wadesboro is the county seat of Anson County. Anson County itself was established earlier in 1750, carved out of Bladen County. So there's a little backstory about the town. Okay, and right here, this house is quite the historic piece here in the town of Wadesboro, because this is called the Bogan Hammond House, built around 1783 by Patrick Bogan, who was the founder of the town. And this is the town's oldest home. It now serves as a museum run by the Anson County Historical Society. How cool is that? That is pretty awesome. Okay, I'm right here on the corner of East Wade Street and South Washington Street. And this is where you will find the town hall for Wadesboro. So speaking of town hall, let's talk a little bit about population of this town. 5,273 souls call Wadesboro home. And the median age of this town is 35 years of age. Pretty healthy. Okay, I made my way across the street from the town hall. And I wanted to walk over here and kind of check out this storefront. I couldn't really make out what it was across the street, but it is a pottery, antiques, and collectible shop. And it's actually called Price's Place. And that looks fascinating, to say the least. I don't know if you guys can see that. If I get out of the way, maybe the shadow wouldn't obscure these old baby dolls. That's a little creepy, but I don't think it's half as creepy as old Ronald McDonald being all sun-bleached, hanging out right there over the door. Not that Ronald McDonald is a scary clown. He is not Pennywise, but nonetheless, it's a little creepy. So next up, let's get into demographics, if we shall. So, here in the town of Wadesboro, 21.52% of the population is white, 74.93% is black, 3.39% is Asian, and 0.15% is American Indian. So the next part we're going to get into is crime. As I put some numbers up on the screen, you can see 343% total crime of Wadesboro is above the national average. But that's nothing. Look at the violent crime. 467% above the national average. And then property crime is 318% above the national average. Okay, right here is the crime rate numbers for Wadesboro. Let's go through them. Total crime is 9.3 out of 1,000. Which, when you compare that to North Carolina and national, it blows it away. It is so much higher. I mean, North Carolina as a whole was 2.3, Wadesboro 9.3, national average 2.1. Then you go down to violent crime, and that is a high number. That is 2 out of 1,000, 2.0 out of 1,000. That is a very, very high number. That is one of the highest numbers I have seen here in the state of North Carolina when it comes to violent crimes. So when you look at Wadesboro's total crime, and it's 9.3, I'm gonna put some other towns up here just to let you see how this kind of compares. So one of the most crime-ridden towns in all of North Carolina, which they have a lot more people than Wadesboro, is Lumberton. But look at that. They have 11.6 out of 1,000. Their violent crime is 1.6, where Wadesboro is a 2. So they actually beat Lumberton in violent crimes. And then when you start comparing that to other big cities throughout the United States, your top dogs in crime, look at Oakland. Oakland scores a 9.1. Oakland's violent crimes is 1.9. Wadesboro beats Oakland. And then another town that's always in the tops of crime here in the United States is Memphis, Tennessee. Total crime there is a 9.4. And then you have violent crimes is 2.5, which that is a lot of violent crime, slightly over the number that Wadesboro posted. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about the economic development of Wadesboro. In the 19th century, cotton was a major cash crop here in Anson County. And in 1894, George Little and later his brother Henry Wall Little opened a hardware store called H.W. Little and Company on South Green Street. That store remains in operation and played a role in the local cotton marketing here in Wadesboro, and is still open to this very day. Right there it is, H.W. Little and Company. This is a relic right here. This is called Parsons Drugs, and it actually opened in 1935 by pharmacist Clyde Parsons. After Clyde Parsons retired, the pharmacy was purchased in the 1970s by pharmacist Larry Horn. In 1998, it was bought by David and Lisa Blanks, a husband and wife pharmacist team who are deeply committed to preserving its historic character, and they still own it to this very day. As I was peeking into the windows here at the Parsons drugstore, look what they have right here. That is what I think it is. That is a cigarette vending machine. Do you know how long it has been since I have feasted my eyes on one of those? Now, I have never smoked in my life, but I do remember these being quite prominent back in the 80s when I was a kid, and this drugstore still has one. All right, my friends, you know I'm a big fan of old theaters, and Wadesboro has one. It's a few blocks away, but while we walk in that direction, we're going to go over some more numbers, and we're going to talk about the index income. Okay, so let's check out these index numbers. Here for the income per capita is $19,354. That compares to North Carolina's $26,779, national average of $29,829. And then we look at the median household income, which this is the big one. This is how much the homes are bringing in per year. On average, $25,354. That is very, very low, especially when compared to North Carolina's $48,256 average and the national average of $55,322. So it is well below. And then if we go down a little bit further on this list and we look at the unemployment rate, 8.3%, well above North Carolina and the national average at 4.7. And then the poverty level is mirroring all this stuff, 35.9%. That is very high. That is really high. And North Carolina as a whole is 16.8, and the national average for poverty is 15.1. Okay, as I stand here at the corner of South Rutherford Street and West Wade Street, I want to pan around and show you this building right here on this corner. Look at that. Now, I am standing on a downhill area, and it actually goes to the left and goes downhill even more. But that building almost looks like it has a lean to it, like this way. Very strange, very old looking building. Couldn't really find any like information or history about this said building prior to right now. The Triad Barber School is in there, established in 2020. Yeah, this building was not built in 2020. This is old school. Wish I had more information because it is just such an awesome looking structure. But nonetheless, I did find the next thing I want to show you. And that is the old theater. Look right down there. That beauty is setting, just waiting on us. Okay, I've made my way down here to the theater itself, which I'm gonna say that's probably pronounced Ansonia. I hope that's how that's pronounced. If not, I'm sorry. But the Ansonia Theater was built in 1925 as a place featuring live acts like comedians, musicians, and dancers. L.L. Drake owned and operated the theater through its early years. And then in 1937, it underwent remodeling and briefly operated as the Ansonia No. 2, serving as a segregated all-white venue during the era of Jim Crow laws. So this theater was actually thriving here in Wadesboro as its primary movie house, showing all kinds of double features, Dolomite, Truck Turner of the 70s, but the rise of television and suburban malls, multiplex cinemas led to its closure after its final screening of Bad Boys 2 in early 2000s. All right, my friends, I think that is going to pretty much wrap up the video today here from Wadesboro, North Carolina. I had a really fun time. Really was a good day today to get out and check this town out. I know the crime rate is shockingly high, and hopefully in due time the elected officials here can get that number going down, because it is absolutely crazy. Could not believe how high it was. That still shocks me. And even though I'm here on a Sunday, as you can tell, there's not a lot going on in these little southern towns on Sunday. And that was the main reason I picked to go visit this town on a Sunday, because I did not want a bunch of people around, because I figured the more people around, the more opportunity you have to be a part of a crime. That was my thought process. So all that being said, I'm done today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me as I got ghosted out by that shadow right there. But all in all, I had a great time. I hope you guys had a great time. Until next time, friends, I'm the Hitchhiking Yeti, and I'll see you on my next adventure. Y'all stay safe. Hope to see you all again soon. So long, Wadesboro. And so long to that drugstore over there, Parsons Drugs. That is epic. I love finding old drugstores like that are still kicking all these years later.